Hey everyone! So if you're sick and tired of just watching your hard-earned money sit in a bank account, literally wasting away to inflation, you are absolutely in the right place. In this explainer, we're cutting straight through the noise and diving right into the source material. We want to uncover the quiet, totally repeatable mechanics that the wealthiest people actually use to build their fortunes. You'll see here on our first slide, we're looking at 7 proven hacks to escape the labor trap. We're going to distill all this data into a highly focused system just for you to help shift you from simply surviving on a paycheck to building actual lasting equity. Let's get into it.
You know, it's so easy to believe that building wealth requires like a massive 6-figure salary, a fancy finance degree, or that one lucky stock pick that just magically changes everything overnight. But according to the data we looked at, that belief is exactly what keeps most people stuck. The real truth? It's actually surprisingly, well, boring. And the text makes a really crucial distinction here. There is a huge difference between acting rich, outward consumption, flashy lifestyle, and actually being wealthy. True wealth happens quietly behind the scenes, right when your passive income finally outpaces your living expenses.
So, we pulled apart the data to find out what actually works, and we condensed it into 6 core steps. Today, we're looking at the boring wealth machine, the money snowball, buy, borrow, die, earner versus owner, the leverage ladder, and finally, the ultimate multiplier.
Let's dive into hack number 1, the boring wealth machine, or more specifically, why picking stocks is a total trap.
I know the idea of a wealth machine being boring sounds completely counterintuitive when we see so much flashy day trading online, right? But the research is super clear here. Even professional investors, the people who analyze charts for a living, consistently struggle to beat the market over the long haul. So here's what the data shows wealthy families actually do instead. They utilize something called an index fund. If you're not familiar, an index fund is just a single fund that automatically spreads your money across hundreds or even thousands of companies all at once. You put in a small amount of capital and boom, it quietly diversifies itself without you lifting a single finger. And then, you do the absolute most effective thing in all of finance. Literally nothing. You just let it sit. It's kind of like a turkey in the oven. The second you keep opening the door to check on it, you ruin it. Consistency is the name of the game here. You automate your investing and just let those small amounts compound reliably over time. Moving on to hack number 2, the money snowball and the harsh mathematical reality of time. Because right now, you might honestly have no idea what your money is actually capable of if you just give it enough runway. Let's look at some quick math from the source material. Say you're 25 years old, okay? And you start putting just $200 a month into that boring index fund we just talked about. Nothing crazy. That's the amount a lot of us spend on takeout and random subscriptions in a couple of weeks. We're going to compare that 25-year-old to someone who decides to start investing that exact same amount, but they wait until age 35. For the 25-year-old, if we assume a historical average return of around 8%, by the time they hit traditional retirement age at 65, that steady, boring drip of $200 a month, it grows into roughly $700,000. Yeah, seriously.
But here comes the brutal part. If you wait until you're 35 to start, just a 10-year delay, that exact same monthly contribution only grows to around $300,000. Same discipline, same monthly effort, but literally less than half the total wealth. Giving up your most valuable decade costs you so heavily because time isn't just a side element in investing, it is the entire engine of compound interest.
All right, hack number 3, buy, borrow, die, also known as the billionaire tax loop. Here's an objective look at how the ultra-wealthy can be worth literally billions of dollars, yet legally pay a lower effective tax rate than, say, a middle school teacher. According to the sources, this strategy relies on one simple fact. Selling an asset triggers a tax event, so they simply don't sell. Here's how it works. Step 1, they buy an asset. Step 2, they walk right into a bank and borrow against the stock or real estate they already own. The asset stays exactly where it is. It's still growing, and the loan they use to fund their lavish lifestyle, well, it isn't classified as income. Therefore, it doesn't get taxed like income. Crazy, right? Finally, step 3, when it eventually passes to their heirs, the tax mechanisms adjust, often making the tax bill on all that historical growth just disappear entirely. Buy, borrow, die. Now, while this specific strategy is heavily engineered for people with serious, massive assets, just understanding that this framework exists completely changes how you view money and debt.
Hack number 4, earner versus owner, and the undeniably unfair tax code.
Our system treats different types of income very differently, and recognizing this is a massive turning point in the source material. Look at this incredibly powerful quote from the text.
The tax code was never written to reward the person collecting a paycheck. Wow, let that sink in. If you earn a standard salary, you're taxed harder than almost anyone else in the entire economy. The structure doesn't penalize your hard work, it penalizes the category of your income.
Money from a regular paycheck gets hit super hard, but money derived from owning something, like a business, intellectual property, or stock equity, gets taxed at a completely different, far friendlier rate. The goal the source is really advocating for here is a total shift in perspective. A steady paycheck? It's actually a precarious single point of failure. The real objective is to use the income from your day job to trade your skills for equity. You want to buy your way into ownership, so that your income starts arriving through the door that the government taxes a whole lot less.
Which perfectly sets up hack number 5, the leverage ladder, and decoupling your time from your money.
This concept explains why some people can generate 10 times more wealth working the exact same number of hours as you do. It all comes down to leverage, which essentially exists in 4 distinct levels. Level 1 is labor. You're just trading your hours for dollars. It's essential, sure, but it has a hard ceiling. You only have so many hours in a day. Level 2 is people. You manage other people's labor, expanding your capacity way beyond your own 2 hands. Level 3 is capital, where your money actually starts earning money without your direct physical effort. But level 4? This is where the modern wealth gap is really bridged: code and media. You build a piece of software, record a video or podcast, or like the source mentioned, leverage artificial intelligence to solve complex problems, and it scales infinitely. It does the work while you sleep. The people scaling their wealth aren't necessarily working harder. They've just moved up the ladder to let capital and code do the heavy lifting for them.
Now, before we get to our final step, let's look at a really interesting data point on housing wealth that the source material touches on. This might actually surprise you, but according to historical data, a house isn't automatically a guaranteed high-yield investment. One Nobel Prize-winning economist studied over a century of housing data and found that, when adjusted for inflation, home prices were basically flat for most of the 1900s and 1950s. The massive wealth boom we always hear about is actually a relatively small, recent window. Look, buying a home for stability and putting down roots is totally valid, but treating it purely as this infallible wealth engine, that's a risk the data suggests you should evaluate very, very carefully.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. Hack number 6, the ultimate multiplier. Patience beats genius. This might just be the most important takeaway of this entire explainer. To illustrate this, the source presents a completely fascinating comparison. Back in 2014, a janitor named Ronald Reed passed away. Now, he wasn't a lottery winner, and he definitely wasn't some high-frequency trading wizard. Yet, just look at what he achieved through sheer, unadulterated patience, especially when compared alongside Warren Buffett, literally one of the greatest investors alive. Ronald Reed died with a net worth of over $8 million. How? He mopped floors for decades, quietly invested a small piece of every single paycheck into the market, and then he simply never touched it for over 60 years. He completely mastered the psychology of money. Now consider Warren Buffett. Here's the statistic that should absolutely reframe how you think about wealth. Roughly 99% of Warren Buffett's entire immense fortune was built after he turned 60 years old. Yep, 99%. Not because a strategy drastically changed, but because that is when decades of quiet, boring compounding finally exploded. The single biggest advantage in building wealth was never raw intelligence. It's simply the willingness to stay boring for longer than everyone else is willing to.
But here's the thing: knowledge you don't act on doesn't compound. The people we've looked at today didn't get wealthy by accident, and they certainly didn't do it by simply reading about financial theories. They achieved real freedom by building systems that allowed their capital to work way harder than they did. They shifted from being earners to being owners. So, as we wrap up this explainer and you reflect on the mechanics of time, leverage, and equity, I want to leave you with this. Are you going to keep trading your time for a paycheck, or are you ready to become an owner and let time do the heavy lifting for you? Will you automate just one transfer right now?